the first thing that they do is it just immediately wing, 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 wing. And then because of that, we're going to be talking about the biggest mistake that I see people making when they're executing and practicing hammer-ons and pull-offs. We're going to talk about how to fix that mistake and then how to practice hammer-ons and pull-offs in a really creative and fun way that's going to directly help your soloing. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The main problem and mistake that I always see people doing when they are learning how to play hammer-ons and pull-offs is that they are trying to execute hammer-ons and pull-offs way too fast. And it's understandable because it's a very natural thing to do, because it's kind of weird at first when we learn a hammer-on and pull-off. We're like, wait a second, I need to whack my finger down super fast in order to get a note to sound out just as loud as if I pick it. So every single time I see someone, especially when they're first learning how to play hammer-ons or pull-offs, it looks something like this. Every single time, it's just like you play the first note and then instantaneously hammer on to the next note. So I want to address this problem really quick. So actually, I know that a lot of times we are learning hammer-ons and pull-offs because we actually want to learn how to play faster. But actually, we need to, more than learning how to execute them fast, we need to actually be able to execute them with control and in time. And ironically enough, that actually involves us playing them slower. So instead of playing your first note that you're going to hammer on from and then immediately hammering on, what I want you to do is start by trying this really simple exercise. You're going to play the note, wait, and then hammer on. So like this. So that's going to teach you how to disconnect the first note from the second note in a hammer-on. The speed of which that you are actually whacking your finger down on the fingerboard has absolutely a zero to do with how fast after the first note you execute that. So in other words, you don't need to instantaneously execute the hammer-on after you pick the first note. You can wait, actually. You can wait forever. You could go. So every single person, whenever I teach them how to play hammer-ons, the first thing that they do is they just immediately wing, 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 wing. And then because of that, they actually don't execute them when they're actually trying to solo. It's not in time. It's just like, I'm just going to move my finger as fast as I possibly can. So, by the way, the exact same thing applies for pull-offs. So when we're executing a pull-off, it's kind of the opposite of a hammer-on. We're starting on a higher note on the same string and pulling off to a lower note on the same string. So I always see people going like this. Just as fast as they can, just ripping that finger out of there. So what I want you to do is try the same thing with your pull-off. So play the first note, hold it, and then pull off. Try that a few times. And then also one other tip for pull-offs in particular is that they really should be called pull downs, because if you just lift your finger off, you don't really get the volume on the second note after the pull-off that you want. Rather, you should be pulling very slightly downwards, because that is actually going to, in effect, pick the string with your finger like this. If I could actually do it without my pick, look, check this out. I'm actually picking the string with my finger. So I just want to point that out. One more thing going back to hammer-ons that you need to pay attention to as well is, even though we're trying our best to really whack that finger on quickly in order to get a lot of volume out of our hammer-on, once the finger is down, do not press down really hard. So that's something that I've done in the past, and I keep seeing people do left and right, is they think, oh, because I really just moved my finger quickly, now all of a sudden, when it's already down, I need to continue pressing super hard. No, when you have that finger down and you've already executed the hammer-on, you can just chill and let your finger sit there really relaxed. Right now, I have almost no tension on my finger. I'm just holding it there. There's no reason for me to press down super hard. So now, once you've done those couple of things, make sure that you move on to now working actually in time. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to, rather than playing a bunch of hammer-ons and pull-offs super fast, we are going to play them in time, but quite slowly. So let's see, I'm going to put on a metronome at a tempo of 70 BPM. And by the way, as you can see here, I'm just hammering on from the 5th fret to the 7th fret on the 3rd string, okay? And actually, this is all part of just your typical A minor pentatonic box, okay? So you should actually practice this with all of the notes on the same string in any given pentatonic scale or major scale, but we're going to be going over that a little bit later on. So we're still going to just focus on these 2 notes here, okay? So first of all, we should actually be able to hammer on and pull off quarter notes, just like this. So you notice that's very, very slow, but it's teaching me to have absolutely perfect, precise control over those hammer-ons and pull-offs. And notice how long I have to hold each one before I decide to go ahead and actually execute that hammer-on or pull-off. Now, while we're at it, I want to point out that there are several different variations of which you can execute hammer-ons and pull-offs in combination with picking, okay? So what I would recommend starting off with is picking the first note, hammering on, pulling off, and hammering on one more time, and then re-picking. So in other words, you're picking every 4 notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm picking on beat 1 every time, because after a while, you're going to find that the sound is going to start to drop off a little bit if all you do is you just never pick again. Now, once you start getting way better at your hammer-ons and pull-offs and you get it really consistent, then you could theoretically just keep going forever like this. I'm just going to pick the first time, and I'm just going to not pick ever again. So you can see it also, by the way, helps if you have some kind of compressor on your guitar. That'll really help you keep those hammer-ons and pull-offs going longer and have the volume not drop off. But actually, the main thing that keeps those hammer-ons and pull-offs going without having to pick again is actually the pull-off itself. Remember what I said earlier, the pull-off actually literally picks the string. Sorry, I just muted the string with my right arm there. I'm literally picking the string there with my 3rd finger. So now, if you're playing with, like, for example, the A minor pentatonic scale, you should be able to execute that same movement on every single string. So the 5th and the 8th fret on the 6th string, and then 5th and the 7th on the 5th string, etc., etc. So let's see what that would sound like with a metronome. Just quarter notes still, okay? Really slow, because the idea here is to have perfect control. And then, of course, you need to practice it so you can chain them together like that. So then that way, you can actually start to create lines with your hammer-ons and pull-offs and not just be limited to the same notes in a row. So now, once you've done that, and you can do that perfectly just like that, now you're ready to start actually playing faster with your hammer-ons and pull-offs. So now I'm going to put on a simple track. It's just going to be an F chord in the background. Good sounding chord underneath an A minor pentatonic scale. And now what we're going to do is we're going to improvise, but with a focus on working on our hammer-ons and pull-offs. So those of you who've been watching for a while, you might notice that I'm a huge fan of practicing concepts in an improvisational context. So in other words, if I want to work on my hammer-ons and pull-offs, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to play a solo, but all I'm going to do is really focus on my hammer-ons and pull-offs. Or if I want to practice my bends, I'm going to say, I'm going to play a solo, but all I'm going to do is work on executing this bend or a whole bunch of different bends or any number of different concepts. I want to actually practice improvising with that concept and not just practice some repetitive exercise, because if I practice actually improvising the concept, then it's actually going to start to show up in my playing. So if I practice improvising with a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs, it's way more likely that then when I'm actually in a musical situation, I'm playing a gig, I'm playing over a track, I'm recording, I'm playing with a band, then I'm going to be able to actually have that stuff come out naturally in my playing without thinking about it. So let's see what this would look like. All right, so we have this track here. We have the tempo. It's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So first of all, I should be able to execute quarter notes like we were just doing. So. Then, if we feel comfortable with that, let's start trying to play eighth notes. So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... And then now, if we feel really comfortable with those eighth notes, then we have to start trying to see if we can play some 16th notes. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So that's if we want to be able to play really fast. And now you might start finding you're having a little bit of trouble with that. If you're having trouble with that, try a short burst of like 4 notes. So, and take a break. But you gotta make sure that it's in really good time. Now, one other thing that I want to mention is that every single thing we've been doing so far has started with the lower note on the string. So I've been starting with my first finger. We should be able to execute all these in an inverse manner. So starting with a pull off and then a hammer on. So starting with the second note on the string or the higher note. So in other words, if we go back to the third string, let's start on the 7th fret first instead of the 5th fret. So, and then once you get comfortable with that, then you can start trying to only play one on each string. So something like this. Right, so I'm switching strings every 2 notes. Let's do that a little bit slower with 8th notes, like this. That's starting from the higher note. What if I start from the lower note? And And now if I play 16th notes, that was 8th notes. And then you can start improvising around with it. Try to take 2 strings that are next to each other. And you can see, just practicing these pretty simple ideas, at the end of the day, it's literally just moving back and forth between 2 notes that we want to get really good at, and then creating as many variations of that and being creative with it is how we're going to get really good at not only executing hammer-ons and pull-offs in general, but specifically being able to improvise with hammer-ons and pull-offs. So if you want to learn how to master the guitar fretboard so that you can know how to play in any key all over the guitar neck, and then you'll be able to apply this technique of hammer-ons and pull-offs to any key anywhere on the neck, then make sure you head on over to Jamsville.com right now and pick up the Jamsville GPS Fretboard Fundamentals course. Also, make sure you head on over to the Jamsville merch store and pick up an awesome Jamsville t-shirt just like this one. There's also lots of different colors available. They fit great. They're super comfortable, super soft. It's one of my favorite t-shirts and I wear it all the time. We also have hats, mugs, all kinds of other goodies so you can represent the Jamsville community out in the world. Also, make sure you check out my new song. It's called My Divine. That's what you're listening to in the background right now. You can check it out on your favorite streaming platform in the link in the description down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Please like the video. I mean, only like 2% of you guys are liking the video. Come on, we got to get that percentage up. It really helps with the algorithm and helps out the channel when you hit that like button. Also, drop a comment. Anything you can do, sharing, commenting, liking, subscribing, it all helps and I really appreciate it. Alrighty everybody, until next time, listen, learn, and jam.